the genital system, part 2. And in this video we will see mainly the development of the testes. So the development of the testes, in the last video we have seen the mainly this diagram you have to see. So this is the coelomic cavity, and we have seen this genital ridges form and this mesonephric ridges form, so that the primordial germ cells have invaded this genital ridge. So here we have learnt already, here sex cords are formed and here the rete cords are formed, and this part is called as the cortex and this part is called as the medulla. So this when this testis determining factor which is present in the short arm of the Y chromosome, if it is present, then this rete cords are and the sex cords will be converted into the seminiferous tubules. If thus TDF is absent, then this will be converted into the ovarian follicles. So still that we have seen. Now we will continue with the development of the testis. So if the development of the testis, for the development of the testis, we have to have this testis determining factor. If the testis determining factor is present, then this sex cords and the rete cords, they are going to form the testis. How it is going to form this, we will now see. So in this picture you try to see, already the primordial germ cells are present, and this part which is in relation to the mesonephric tubules will be called as the medulla, and this part is called as the cortex. So we have learnt already, when this TDF is present, then this medulla is persisting, cortex is disappearing. So that you can see in this picture, the cortex is disappearing, only the medulla will be converted into the rete cords in the medulla will be converted into the seminiferous tubules, so that this cavity formed will be called as the rete testis. So when this testis determining factor is present, the medulla of this genital ridge is forming the seminiferous tubules. So the seminiferous tubules has three functions. One is to lock this primordial germ cells without undergoing the further migration, mitosis and the meiosis, so that they will be persisting as the primary spermatogonia. That is the main difference between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. In the spermatogenesis, they should be arrested so that they will persist as the primary spermatogonia. In the oogenesis, they should go up to the meiosis 1. So the Sertoli cells stop the meiosis of this primary spermatogonias. They are arrested. So that is the one function. Second function is they secrete the Mullerian inhibiting factor. So that we have learnt already. So that this Mullerian inhibiting factor will suppress the Mullerian duct. Third function of this seminiferous tubule is testosterone secretion and dihydrotestosterone secretion by the Leydig cells of this developing testis, so that they will help in the development of the external genitalia. So that we learnt in the last class how this genital tubercle, genital folds and genital swellings, they will form the external genitalia in response to the testosterone and dihydrotestosterone secreted by the Leydig cells of the seminiferous or Leydig cells of the testis. So you should now ask one question. If this Leydig cells of the developing testis continue to secrete in the childhood, so that is not happening. So we should understand this Leydig cells of this testis is only predominant in the developing testis, and they start resuming its function after puberty. So that's about this. Seminiferous tubules, they secrete, they have three functions. One is this, yes, they are arresting the primordial germ cells in the meiosis. 2 is producing the Mullerian inhibiting factor. 3 is the secretion of the testosterone. So this, when these are happening in this 7th week of intrauterine life, mesenchymal cells, you have to see this diagram I have drawn. So compare this diagram and this diagram. If you compare, you can see here it is attached to the genital ridge. At the 7th week, this mesenchymal cells separate this developing seminiferous tubules from the genital ridge. So this is the important histological differentiation of the testis and the ovary. So this separation of this genital ridge and this developing testis by the mesenchyme, so that will give us that that is testis is to be formed. Even we can identify in the 7th week of intrauterine life, so that testis is forming or ovary is forming. So this histological differentiation of this mesenchyme separating the genital ridge and the testis is very important, so that they will be separating and testis is formed. So this you should think, ovary is present in the abdomen, in the pelvis itself. Testis should descend, so that it is first itself it is separated from the genital ridge by this mesenchyme. So that is very important. So now you can appreciate in this picture. So this, you see this picture. So these are the mesonephric tubules and the mesonephric duct. And so this is the mesonephric ridge. So mesonephric tubules and mesonephric duct. Adjacent to this, paramesonephric duct. So when this seminiferous tubules are developing and this rete testis is forming this canalizations in the 6th month of the embryo, so it becomes attached to this mesonephric tubules. So this is the mesonephric tubules. It becomes attached to the mesonephric tubules, so that it will form the efferent tubules of the testis. Then this will be continuing as the, so that this mesonephric duct is attached here, so that they will form the canal of the epididymis and vas deferens. So now you can appreciate. So mesonephric duct has attached to this, so that to form the testis, efferent ductules of testis, and this is the canal of epididymis and vas deferens. So now you can appreciate in this. So this paramesonephric duct which is here has disappeared. So paramesonephric duct disappears when the testis is forming. So this is how we should understand, from the genital ridge, from the medulla of the genital ridge, testis is formed, so that this rete cards are converted into the seminiferous tubule and rete testis is formed, and this mesonephric tubules are attached to this, so that they will form the efferent ductules of the testis, and mesonephric duct is attached, which will form the canal of the epididymis and the vas deferens. So with this we can understand the testis formation, but this testis is present in the, so you should see this picture, testis is present in this. So this is the dorsal abdominal wall. You have to take this as the dorsal abdominal wall and this as the ventral abdominal wall. So this testis is now present in the dorsal abdominal wall, related to the mesonephric ridge. So we have learnt this genital ridge is in relation to the middle 2/4 of the mesonephric ridge. So this is developing in relation to the mesonephric ridge. So they are attached to the mesonephric tubules and the mesonephric duct. Just now we have learned. So these are the mesonephric tubules and this is the mesonephric duct. So we have to now again revise what we have seen in the yesterday's class. It is attached cranially by the suspensory ligament of the testis, we have learned. So suspensory ligament of the, so this is the suspensory ligament, which, and if you see this caudal part of this developing testis, we have this attachment that will be called as the inguinal fold. We have learnt in the last class, inguinal fold. If this inguinal fold is developing mesenchyme around this, then it will be called as the gubernaculum. It will be called as the gubernaculum testis. So it will be called as the gubernaculum testis. So this gubernaculum testis is, if you see, it is attached one to the lower pole of the testis, another to this part. So this is the peritoneal. Yes, this is the peritoneal evagination. It will be called as the saccus vaginalis. Saccus vaginalis. It will be called completely as the saccus vaginalis. So this gubernaculum testis, one part is attached to the lower pole of the testis, another to the saccus vaginalis, another to the mesonephric duct. So that is the proximal attachment of the gubernaculum testis. If you see the distal attachment of the gubernaculum testis, so already from the ventral abdominal wall, scrotal swelling has formed. So this is the scrotal swelling. So from the ventral abdominal wall it has formed. So this gubernaculum splits into many parts so that it will be attached, and it will be called as the tail of Lockwood. It will be called as tail of Lockwood. So this, what are the lower attachments? If you see, it is attached to the symphysis pubis, it is attached to the lower part of the scrotum. Then so many attachments, it may be attached to, it is attached to the anterior superior iliac spine, and it is attached to the saphenous opening. So many parts. So this gubernaculum is attached. So this mesenchyme around this gubernaculum develops in the initial stage. It is it is appearing as if it is loose, containing hyaluronic acid. So in this initial development of this fetus, but if you see the last 2 months of the pregnancy, it develops this muscle fibers more, which is innervated by the genitofemoral nerve, so that it will be helping in the descent of the testis much. So that's about the gubernaculum testis. So already this gubernaculum is running, so you should understand this. Ventral abdominal wall is formed around this gubernaculum. So you should note this. Inguinal canal is formed by this development of the anterior abdominal wall around this gubernaculum. So inguinal canal is formed even before the descent of the testis. So that is the one point you should note. So now this testis is present. It has the attachment of the gubernaculum. One part is attached, proximal end is attached to the lower pole of the testis, and distal end has many attachments, so that it is one part is attached to the lower part of the scrotum. So now, what are the factors which help in this descent of the testis? One is this gubernaculum testis. So one important factor is this gubernaculum testis. So this pull of the gubernaculum testis is mainly helping in the descent of the testis. But you should note that when this action of this gubernaculum testis is very important. If I tell, so this testis, it is present here, reaching this iliac fossa by the 4th month. Reaching the iliac fossa by the 4th month, and reaching the deep inguinal ring by the 7th month. So reaching this iliac fossa and the deep inguinal ring, this contractions of the gubernaculum is not much helping. So still this part, what is helping is the dorsal abdominal wall is developing longitudinally, so that it is developing much, and this mesonephric kidney is detaching, and the suspensory ligament is disappearing. So all this cause the descent of this testis up to the deep inguinal ring, which is in the 7th month. So after this, from 7th to 9th month, it traverses the inguinal canal. Just before birth, it reaches the scrotum. So just before birth or just after birth, it reaches the scrotum. So at this, from traversing the inguinal canal and reaching the scrotum, there's multiple pulls of this gubernaculum in the last few months, which has developed many muscle fibers now. So the continuous pull of this gubernaculum is the one of the cause of this descent of the testis. Also the increased intra-abdominal pressure is also another cause. Again, one more cause they are telling is this intra-abdominal temperature is more than the scrotal temperature. So that is also the another cause. Then this internal oblique fibers. So that the contraction of the internal oblique fibers is also another cause. So many factors help in the descent of the testis. When this descent is testis is descending, it just takes the sac of this peritoneum along with this, so that it will be now called as the processus vaginalis. So this descent of this part of this peritoneal sac along with the testis, when it reaches the scrotum. So if you see here, the scrotum is testis is reaching the scrotum. Testis is reaching the scrotum. Along with that, it is taking a pouch of the peritoneum. So that will be called as the processus vaginalis. Whether this processus vaginalis is formed due to the pull of this, due to the pull of the gubernaculum, or it is not related to this, is not still understood. So, but a part of this sac is dragged along with this, so that this processus vaginalis also reaches along with the testis. So after the descent of the testis, this processus vaginalis, the proximal part should disappear like this. So except the distal part, so that will persist as the vaginal sac of the testis. So except this distal part, all should disappear, processus vaginalis normally. If it is not disappearing, for example, if you think if it is persistent even after the descent of the testis, that is the main cause of the congenital inguinal hernia. Sometimes this processus vaginalis does not completely disappear. It persists as a fibrous thread. It may persist, or it may be disappearing at both ends, but in the middle it may be persisting, so that it will form the encysted hydrocele of the spermatic cord. So like that. So if you think this gubernaculum after the descent, what it is going to give rise to, some authors think that they give rise to this extrinsic coverings of the testis along with the development of the cremaster muscle. Also one part it gives rise to is the lower end of the lower pole of the testis is attached to the scrotum by the scrotal ligament. So that is contributed by the gubernaculum. So that is the one remnant of the gubernaculum testis. So we have now, still now we have learnt the descent of the testis. So many factors are responsible. One is this gubernaculum testis. Two is this gubernaculum testis develops from the inguinal fold. Two is increased intra-abdominal pressure, intra-abdominal temperature, and the contraction of the internal oblique fibers. So many factors. And we have also learned when the testis, gubernaculum testis is helping the testis, it also drags the pouch of peritoneum that will be called as the processus vaginalis. So if this is persistent, it may cause the congenital inguinal hernia. So still that we have learned. Now we will see the congenital abnormalities of the development of the testis. So many congenital abnormalities are there. One is this total absence of the testis in the scrotum, which will be called anarchism, so that they are present in the abdomen, it is not descended. So otherwise one testis may have descended, another testis may not have descended. So that will be called as the monarchism. Sometimes incomplete descent of the testis. As soon as the male newborn is born, if you palpate for the testis in the scrotum, it may be absent, but if you palpate in the inguinal canal, it may be present. So that is the incomplete descent of the testis. So many lower attachments we do. So what it may cause? So that is called as the ectopia testis. Ectopia testis may not be present in the scrotum, it may be present near the anterior superior iliac spine, in the superficial perineal pouch, in relation to the saphenous opening. So all these are the ectopia testis. So in this, anarchism is the main defect. If the testes are present in the abdomen, so that may cause the infertility, even it may undergo the malignant changes. If this is incompletely descent of the testis, if it is identified earlier, if we give the testosterone injection, it may help in the descent of the testis. So that, or by the, if it is present in the inguinal canal, we can make it descend and we can fix it. That will be called as the orchidopexy. So many congenital abnormalities we have learned. One more we have learned, the persistence of the processus vaginalis may cause the congenital inguinal hernia. Sometimes encysted hydrocele of the spermatic cord also may be present. So this completes the development of the testis and the descent of the testis. So with the next video, in the next video we will see the development of the ovary, uterus and vagina. That will complete the development of the genital system. Thank you.